Hey guys, this is Rudy coming at you live from Palm Beach in Florida. It is Wednesday. It is January the 25th. The month is almost in the books. And what I want to do this evening, because it's about 7 p.m. in the evening, is talk a little bit about the news over the last week, especially after the last video I made, which was my comment about exiting my position in Petrobras, which sort of reminded me of Carl Icahn exiting Occidental in was it March 2022, and many people, including myself, said like, "Oh, are you crazy?" Anyway, he exited Occidental when it was trading sort of in the $30 range, and of course after that we saw it spike up all the way to 77. But you know, in his defense, he still owns about 14 million or so, 15 million warrants. And in addition to that, he made about $4 billion on Occidental. So he is not doing too badly. What I'm going to do here is this video might run a little long. So if you get bored, go and watch an episode of South Park or something and come back. But I'll try and keep it as short and sweet as possible. I want to talk a little bit about the news and some of the community notices shared in the channel in the comment section that I want to highlight. Then I want to tell you sort of why, one of the reasons why I'm sort of keeping some powder dry in terms of what I'm investigating and what I'm doing. And as I do this, I will share some of the insight that I gain with you, which is free. I do the research, you get the benefit. And then I'm going to close it off by just talking about a couple of your stock picks that are ridiculously cheap, excluding Petrobras this time. Right, so let's get right into it. So a couple of things here, just sort of a highlights reel. 2 cents oil baron. 2 cent oil baron is one of my Twitter friends, Jane, and she said, "What about EC?" That's Ecopetrol from Colombia. Chad said, "Hey Rudy, do you know anything about Zim Integrated Shipping Services? 149% dividend. Are you kidding me, Chad?" Well, I had not heard of Zim before. Well, to be honest, I had heard of them superficially. But only in passing, and I had no idea that the dividend they're paying is 149%. That is crazy. Is it sustainable? I'm not sure. How about Bulldogs here at the bottom? So Bulldogs was originally the guy, Bulldogs number one. Of course, the Bulldogs are number one. He was the guy who originally introduced me to energy transfer, not so much as an introduction, but more as like imploring me to go and take a look at it again. Mr. Oxy, go take a look at energy transfer again. I did. And now it's one of my largest positions in energy. Bulldogs is saying, take a look at MGBAF, Mercedes-Benz. I don't usually look at automotive companies, but thanks for this one, Bulldog. This is actually a really interesting pickup. DD said, one thing I find interesting is for some reason there isn't as much fear about political interference in, he says EC, but he means Colombia, compared to Petrobras, even though EC, Colombia, has leftists in power also. You know, it's not so much the leftists in power, it's more the concept of the situation right now where Petrobras is so much state-owned that the influence by the state is actually quite phenomenal. Anyway, that was a comment from DD. BA said my thoughts also, and EC has a much bigger portion of the overall stock owned by the government, right? So here's the counter to what I just said, right? So it's not so much the state ownership per se, but state control and maybe interference. Jay Hudge said, anyone selling is overacting. He's talking about my video here where I said I'm exiting Petrobras. By the way, I'm not anti-Petrobras. I think it's one of the cheapest super majors you can buy. So that thesis has not changed. The Western political model is very different than Latin America, where I've seen many interesting things in the last few weeks. Brazil, many commentators speaking as though the world is ending and Brazil is now a failed state. That wasn't really my intention. It's more related to the fact that there's so much interference. I don't need it in my portfolio right now. It's more related to that. Mr. Burke, Robert Burke, I should actually call him Mr. Cliffs, right? He constantly reminds me of CLF, Cliffs. He says a Brazilian is now running the company. Lee commented, he said, Mr. Oxy, thank you for your comment, blah, blah, blah. I am heavily invested in PBR as my largest holding. It saddens my heart that you feel PBR is now a sell. Lee, I do not think PBR is now a sell. The fact that I sold PBR doesn't mean PBR is a sell. That just means I sold PBR because it helps me to raise a bit of cash and keep my powder dry. As I mentioned in my previous video, I have many energy stocks. In fact, I currently have 10. So if I had to cut one of them, because previously I had 11, unfortunately, it was just Petrobras. But I'm going to tell you in a minute why I am doing that. Vinny, my friend, Vinny Gupta, Vin said, Rudy, I have to admit, I was quite shocked to see this video about the Petrobras sale. Anyway, we had some communication after that, and Vince feels a little bit better now. So he makes the comment down here. He says, no, Dilma, he's talking about Lula, and talk about business friendly. Bolsonaro was actually the guy who fired the last 3 CEOs in a span of 6 months. Yep, you're right about that. Bolsonaro interfered in Petrobras, maybe even more so than what Lula will be interfering in the future. But here's a really good comment from how, I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, so please forgive me if I get it wrong. But he says, hello, Rudy, thank you. Let's skip the pleasantries. I find them insightful. I'm just a small Portuguese investor, and PBRA is the biggest slice of my portfolio. Congratulations. That is a good position to be in. Petrobras is an exceptionally good buy at the current price. I must say, when I first saw your post, I froze without knowing why you would be selling PBR. It's such a big slice. I follow closely what's going on in Brazil, and I have the privilege of speaking the language. Truth be told, the Brazilian society is very split at the moment, but I believe it will soon settle down. Brazil has a democracy with all its faults that a democracy has, but people will never let the country fall into another dictatorship, maybe left or right. That being said, I do not believe in the witch hunt theories that the People Army would not allow it. What's happening in Brazil is a political demonstration of power to prevent similar future events. What just happened in Brazil is just a cheap copy of what happened in the United States, you betcha, right? So we have the CEO of the largest corporation on the planet, Joseph Biden. Would you have made your shortlist if you were choosing to hire a CEO? It'll just blow away. Thanks for sharing that. This is my 2 cents. You know, this is really good content because he speaks the language, he understands the situation. Great footage. So what about the money? So when I say I'm selling out of Petrobras, so take a look at the screen. I'll just pause here for a second, right? Some of these companies may be familiar to you, and some of them may not be familiar to you at all. Others you might sort of recognize just because of words like rare earths, you know, ionic and peak. Others you may recognize because of the type of metals they are, or the type of commodity it is: uranium, vanadium, lithium, nickel, and tungsten. So within the next couple of weeks, I will be attending the Mining Indaba conference, which was highlighted to me by my friend on this channel, Matt Kunke. And I will be traveling to South Africa. And right now I have more than a dozen meetings set up with the chief executive officers, chief financial officers, investor relations people from different companies. And there's just a small taste of them on the screen right here. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is because I'm basically building up a little bit of a war chest so that I have some cash in hand. And when I go and speak to some of these people, I'm going to possibly pick up a potential buy or 2 or 3 or so. And if you've been following my channel, you will know that I will share these things with you if I think there's an exceptionally good buy or a compelling reason for us to invest in any one of these. I've only had a position in one of these companies before, GoviX Uranium. This company is a penny stock. It's out of Canada, headquartered in Montreal. From memory, I got into GoviX at about 17 cents per share and exited at about $32 per share, so almost 2 times. But I didn't exit completely. I just took my own cash off the table and left the rest to just run. Other than that, these are all new to me. And if I find anything that's a proverbial diamond in the rough, I will share it with you. So let's look at some of these low price stocks that I mentioned just a minute ago, right? So is my camera going crazy here? Let me just turn off the video for a second so I can see what's going on here. Take myself off the screen. I think my camera is kind of giving up the ghost here. So let's take a look at some of these stocks quickly. So these are basically your picks because some of these you shared with me. Let me try the camera again, see if it works. Yeah, it seems okay. If it starts flickering again or something like that, I'll just take it away. So Zim Integrated Shipping, interesting pickup here. So I shared the comments before. Mercedes-Benz from Bulldogs #1, Ecopetrol from Jane. Bank of Nova Scotia is actually one that was highlighted to me. I'm long Bank of Nova Scotia, so of these 5, the only one I'm long in is Scotia Bank. One of our clients said, I want to buy some more Scotia Bank, so I did too. And then, of course, there's Mr. Burke's Cleveland Cliffs. So these are all sort of your recommendations. I'm going to go through them here for a second, but really interesting, right? So they are not all the same. They are, in fact, very, very different companies. So when you look at the industries that they are in at the bottom, neither one of these is the same as the other. They're very, very different. So if you kind of just scroll across the bottom line here, you're talking about a company that's involved in shipping, automotive, emerging markets, obviously oil, that's eco-petrol, foreign banks, and mining. So one of the reasons why I picked these five, firstly, is because you guys highlighted it, but another reason why I picked these five is because, with the exception of Cleveland Cliffs, they're all in different countries, right? So let's take a quick look at the snapshot here and see if these things are worth buying at all, and we see what they look like. So on the screen over here, I'm looking at the technicals, right? So once again, when you look at the technicals, you want to always start off by looking at the 20-day raw stochastic. This is a bar charts comparison of the stochastic, and you can see that they're all at around 80, which means they've all actually been overbought. If you're using the stochastic score as an indicator or a benchmark in terms of the decisions that you're making, then in theory, none of these are a buy because they're all hovering around 80 or so. And in case you've forgotten what the stochastic is, usually what we want to do is, if we look at the stochastic, and you should never look at one particular metric in isolation, you buy when it's sort of in the 20, 30 percentile range, and you sell when it gets to 70, 80%. And you can see these are all, as I said, around 80. So they've all been overbought. So right now, arguably, if you use the stochastic, it's not a good time to get into these stocks. But look at the bottom of the screen, where instead of outlining it in red, I outlined it in green. And look at the price earnings ratio. If you base your decision as to whether you want to get into a stock or not on the price earnings ratio, just look at the bottom of the screen. Price earnings ratio for all of them is super cheap. The worst one is only 8. A price earnings ratio of 8 is a screaming buy. So anything below 8 is a buy. So depending on how you analyze these stocks and what your investment thesis and narrative is, your timeline, all that kind of stuff, if you look at it from a technicals point of view, you'll say, whoa, I've got to stay away from these. If you look at it from a price earnings point of view, you say, every one of them is a buy. Let's go just a little deeper and we look at the performance over the last few months. So I'm not going to look at a few days or 1 month or so, just look at a couple of months or so. In fact, 6 months is probably my best benchmark, and that's the longest I can go on bar charts. Ideally, I'd want to look at it over sort of 1 to 3 years or so, but this is 6 months. So the people who are long in Zim integrated shipping have taken a bit of a hit. But then for the rest of them, so Mercedes-Benz up 30%, eco-petrol is up 26%, Scotia Bank's only down 11%, and Cleveland Cliffs up 30%. Well done, Mr. Burke. But look at this screen. So this one I always find interesting, right? Because what I do here is I look at the key statistics, and very specifically, right, I'm kind of, let's call it plucking the low-hanging fruit, right? So I look at the stochastic to give me an indicator. Then I look at the price earnings ratio. And right now what I'm doing is I'm looking at a ratio which I'm calculating manually. And I'm basically saying, what does this company's annual sales look like compared to its market cap? Now, if you don't know what market cap is, just as a refresher, it's the number of the outstanding shares multiplied by the current share price, which gives you an indication as to whether this company is actually priced cheap to buy or whether it's expensive. Look at the delta between the sales. So on Zim, they're doing almost $11 billion in sales, and their market cap's only 2.2 billion, right? So we have a sales divided by market cap ratio of 5. So they're doing 5 times more sales than what their market cap is currently. I'm not suggesting that's good because we haven't done a deep dive to see why this might be the case or why the stock price is so low. There might be many fundamental factors, a weak balance sheet, too much debt, etc., that come into play. I'm not doing that now. I'm just giving you the sort of highlights reel, 50,000-foot view, right? Look at Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz does 2 times annual sales, 158 billion, market cap 80. 2 times. How about eco-petrol, generating almost $120 billion in sales with a market cap of only 24 billion. Super cheap, much like Zim integrated shipping. How about Bank of Nova Scotia? So here you have to have a little bit of insight into the type of equity that you're looking at. Scotia Bank is generating 36 billion in sales. They have a market cap of 62. that's sort of more normal. However, banks basically benefit from the fractional reserve concept, which the federal bank, the Fed is not a bank, and it's definitely not a reserve, so that people shouldn't really call it the Federal Reserve Bank. They do. It's better perhaps just to call it the Fed because it's federal. But because of fractional reserve banking, this is not a good indicator for the bank, so you can almost ignore this one on the screen here. And if you look at Cleveland Cliffs, again, it's doing 20 billion in sales. It's only like $10 billion market cap. So 2 times sales compared to its current market cap, right? So these key indicators on their own, basically, or just this line on its own, this row, is basically showing you that Zim integrated shipping for sure, Eco Petrol definitely, and then to a lesser degree, Mercedes-Benz and Cleveland Cliffs are super cheap. Banks are viewed a little bit differently, so you can't really use the same metric for all of them. If you were long on these, so over a 1-year period, Mr. Burke has done pretty good on Cleveland Cliffs. He's up 20% over the last year. And then the rest of them sort of in a little batch here have pretty much performed along with the rest of the market. And then down at the bottom here, Zim for a 1-year period, down 71%. That's a huge hit to take on one particular stock. Let's take a quick look at the snapshot here. I've highlighted some of the plus points perhaps in green and some of the negative points in red. So, and I'll tell you why. So firstly, it's based in Israel, so it gives you a little bit of geographical diversification. Trading right at the lowest of its 52-week range, so it's like super cheap. Positive earnings, nice PE ratio, super cheap. The reason why I put the dividend in red, because the dividend is so huge. I'm not sure if it's sustainable or not, so that's something we want to look at. The short interest is high at 22%, and the graph looks horrible, right? So a lot of people who are long Zim integrated shipping lost a lot of money, but there are some plus and minus figures or factors related to it. Mercedes-Benz based in Germany, so now you have one Israel, one Germany. It's trading sort of towards the high side of the 52-week range. Once again, positive earnings, nice PE, nice dividend, more than 7% for people who are looking for some fixed income. How about Eco Petrol, based in Colombia? So now we have Israel, Germany, and Colombia. You can buy it for $12. It's cheap. It's sitting towards the left side of the 52-week range. It's got positive earnings, got a super cheap PE ratio, an enormous dividend, $2.26 on an $11 stock is yielding currently almost 20%. It's fantastic, much like Petrobras. Price to buy, not price to sell, Mr. Oxy. Bank of Nova Scotia, based in Canada, right? That's the 4th country now, right? So we have Israel, Germany, Colombia, and Canada. And then Bank of Nova Scotia is quite a large bank, $61 billion, $62 billion market cap, positive earnings, nice PE ratio under 10, and strong dividend, almost 6%, sitting to the left side of the 52-week range, just a few percent short, 3%, it's not much, not unusual for a bank. Also price to buy, nice pickup here. And the last one, Cleveland Cliffs. This one is in the United States, so this is the 5th country. You can buy it for $20 a share, sitting just left of center on the 52-week range. Positive earnings, once again, a PE ratio, super cheap, 4.47, doesn't pay a dividend. The short interest kind of slightly higher at more than 8% of the outstanding float. So that's kind of 5 of your snapshots of stocks that are super cheap. If I could add more stocks to this particular sort of portfolio that I'm going through here right now, I probably could add in Petrobras as well, because remember, as I've said before, Petrobras is not a sell, it's a buy. The only reason why I sold it, well, are the reasons I shared with you in my previous video, but also obviously to have some dry powder handy and ready for when I go and speak to the CEOs and the CFOs and the investor relations groups of the people I am going to be seeing within the next couple of weeks or so. So you can let me know in the comments whether any of these are buys, sells, or holds for you. And more importantly, don't get stressed out if I sell something. You know, most of the time I'm telling you if I find something that I think is a good buy, I don't expect you to follow me. You must have your own investment thesis, which matches your age, your earnings, your timeline, your expectations, your expected return on investment, all that kind of good stuff, right? If you're young and you have a job that pays you a lot of money, you can take much higher risks. So then some of the information I share with you, especially when I talk about high dividend stocks, are probably not even interesting. But I don't expect you to follow what I do, and don't get too passionate or too anxious or whatever the word is, or emotional. If I sell something, I do sell things from time to time. In fact, last year, as Oxy peaked several times above $70, I trimmed a little every now and then. Some of it was rebalancing. Some of it I donated to our charitable foundation. Some of it I just cashed out and bought some other stuff, including Petrobras, right? So it's not like I never sell, but my typical thesis when I get into a new stock is to buy it and hold it. And my general time frame is about 3 to 5 years. For Petrobras, I actually opened my first position about a year ago, and then added quite a few times. In fact, about 7 or 8 months ago, I made a video saying why I am buying Petrobras. That thesis has not changed at all. The only reason why I sold Petrobras recently was because it was 11 of 11 stocks, which to me was sort of at the bottom in terms of its performance, even though I've been raking in this big, fat, juicy dividend. And I sold Petrobras in order to raise some cash for future investments that are probably going to be added to my portfolio in 2023. So guys, that's my story for this evening. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you buy any of these 5 stocks that I mentioned, and I look forward to connecting with you. Take care. Bye-bye.